Hello, I'm back with some more Great War details. Still on the line of Great War monuments, memorials to the missing on the Western Front. So this video is also on Patreon, and you can like and subscribe if you like, and if you really like, you can buy me a coffee. So here we have the Menin Gate, ramparts level south side, and then a view from the inside to YPRES Centre. There are about 736,275 soldiers named in the Commonwealth War Graves Commission lists for France and Belgium. Of the total of 241,619 noted as missing on the Western Front, excuse me, about 159,841 are under headstones as unknown, leaving about 81,778 with no trace. Memorials to the missing name both those under an unknown headstone and those still lying out in foreign fields. The Menin Gate. We all know it, we've been there, we've heard the last post, we've got the t-shirt and the mug. An imposing, thought-provoking and emotional memorial. This is in the late 70s, before the recent renovation, and on the right you can see a recent photo with the renovation done. So, what might it have been and how did it get there? In January 1919, Churchill has suggested buying the city of Ypres in its war-ravaged state as a permanent memorial, not unlike the French village of Oradour-sur-Glane, retained untouched after World War II. In March of 1919, the Belgian government was working on a similar idea of retaining the ruins of the cathedral, the cloth hall, and the adjacent buildings. By November 1919, new ideas consisted of combinations of retaining the cathedral and cloth hall ruins and either surrounding them by a ring of trees and or rebuilding around the Grand Place. But these ideas were defeated by the practicality and actuality of returning citizens who had already started rebuilding their properties. A monument was the better option. The Belgians were not too keen on the idea of retaining all the ruins. In 1918, the Belgian government in exile had given the victims the right to rebuild their houses. The chief architect, Jules Koemans, had his own plans. He wanted to rebuild Ypres with an historical reinterpretation of the medieval past, replacing recent buildings with a neo-medieval variety and sometimes adjusting the urban spaces. So this is the architect of the Menin Gates, Sir Reginald Blomfield, a recent president of the RABA, well, recent in 1918. After the outbreak of war, he joined the Inns of Court Volunteer Reserve, starting as a sergeant, then given a commission. Occupied digging trenches around London, he said that I was accused of an unusual flow of language when engaged in trench work. At one point he hit his thumb with a hammer instead of a nail. Lawrence Binion, working with him, looked at Blomfield gravely and said, "You quite frightened me with your language." In 1917 he was on the Memorial Committee of the Royal Academy, before becoming advisor to the Imperial War Graves Commission. In 1918, appointed by Alfred Mond to a committee for the Office of Works, considering sites for national memorials in London. Mond was the Commissioner of Works, also known as Lord Melchett. Melchett? General Melchett? No, darling. This is Lord Melchett. So, Reginald Blomfield was sent to Ypres by the War Office from the 3rd to the 7th of September 1919, with instructions to check out 4 possible sites for a battle exploit memorial at Ypres. And this apparently is the map he took. So the four sites are: number one, the Grand Place over here, which we all know. Number two was the Lille Gate to the south. Number three was the island southwest of the Lille Gate. And site number four was the Menin Gate. Blomfield eliminated three of the sites. Island in the moat was small and there were access issues getting across the moat. The Grand Place would disturb the sense of place of the square and too close to the cathedral and Cloth Hall. Lille Gate, there was not much space and there were still remains of the old gate and fortifications. Pre-World War I Menin Gate was a passage between the ramparts, the gate long since gone. So here we have a view from about 1918, or prior to 1890, view to the west with the Cloth Hall in the background. Note the ramparts are here and the lions on either side of what would have been the gate. The canal is behind the railings on the left and the right. So this was the building site in 1919. The ramparts on both sides, the moat and the causeway over which the soldiers passed to the front line. It described the top of the ramparts. The top is at present a collection of pitfalls, trenches, gun emplacements, etc. And X marks the spot of the original lions. So this was Blomfield's basic idea. It was an archway with a central road in the gap. Inspiration from the Citadel Gate in Nancy is seen as the central vehicular passageway flanked by smaller pedestrian passages, but with an arched central opening. So here we have the similar form, but with a flat arch in the centre. Other possible inspiration: the Fuseliers Arch in Dublin, the Wellington's Arch in London, and the L'Arc de Triomphe in Paris. Blomfield made a first presentation on the 25th of September 1919, and this is an interpretation of his plan. The basic idea is as today, except that there were a staircase on either side giving access to the ramparts, and still had four spiral staircases in each corner going from the ground to the roof. So these are the stairs to the ramparts, one on the left side, one on the right side, but only on the town side. Some associated ideas in the same proposal: the Canadians had already installed the bungalow on the south side and a notice board on the road at the roadside. This site is reserved to the Canadian government as historic ground. Nothing is to be removed from here by order. So one of the ideas was to have a British Divisions Memorial on the north side and a Canadian Memorial on the south side. That was 25th September 1919. Churchill issued a list of possible battle exploit memorials for places like Ypres, the Cenotaph in Paris, La Ferté-sous-Jouarre in December 1919. May 1919, the Canadians were moving on the Menin Gate site and getting local approvals. In August 1920, the National Battlefields Memorial Committee, NBMC, decided to have a battle exploit memorial at Ypres. In May 1921, a letter was sent by the ambassador to the Belgian government in Brussels in error, mentioning a memorial at Ypres, This caused a stir as various committees, subcommittees and advisory committees were still making up their minds. Also, in May 1921, the project was proposed to be a competition for the Empire. 23rd of May 1921, in a cabinet memo from the first Commissioner of Works, David Lindsay, 27th Earl of Crawford, I gather that Sir Reginald Blomfield, Royal Academy, was commissioned to make a design which has now been discarded. At that he has entered a substantial claim for services rendered. As this will fall on my votes, I invite protection from this kind of embarrassment. Ooh. In June, the Ypres Battle Archway was discussed as well as a memorial to the missing for 20,000 names, at which point it was realised that economies could be made by combining the two monuments. And let's put out to a competition. Oof. So a two-monument situation was avoided. As late as November 1921, Blomfield's scheme had been on the table for over 2 years, and a competition was still being suggested. It would take time to make up the rules, get a survey done, send out across the empire. Judges were at hand, architects like Lutyens, Baker and Blomfield. But that meant that the leading architects could not present a scheme. Someone suggested that Belgian authorities would have to be advised that a competition was being launched, and that would mean inviting Belgian architects. While all this was going on, Blomfield suggested a smaller, more economical version on the 2nd of November 1921. So this is his version, again my interpretation. This must have reminded people that he was still around and still interested in the project. The plans provoked interest. Charles Aitken was worried about the single span for the main Hall of Memory. Blomfield got weaving on some more plans. Already in 1921, his elevation was already well advanced. The Memorial Hall plan has now moved to 115 feet by 66 feet. Blomfield wanted a brick lining to the 66 feet span. There was a resistance to this from Aitken, but also from Sir Maurice Fitzmaurice, the engineer. To counter this and retain the brick line vault, he produced an alternative design. The same plan area as the previous plan, this time supporting columns along the pavement, along here, this being the pavement and that the road, changing the roof to a narrower barrel vault over the roadway. What was happening in section? A bit of extrapolation was required from Blomfield's detailed descriptions. I've not seen any original plans yet, so this is a brouillon which I did. So my interpretation of the interior was something like that, with a central barrel vault and the walkway with a flat roof over it. So in the real section, this was the single span version, which people thought was too large, and this with the barrel vault and small flat roofs on either side. But one of the worries was this getting filled up with snow. Blomfield was finally recommended to continue with the project, but now the requirement for place to put the names of the missing had gone up from 20,000 to 50,000. On the 13th of February 1922, the general design was approved with the wider span vault. In March 1922, the London Illustrated News announced the British Memorial Arch at Ypres. So 21st of March 1922, Blomfield went again to Ypres to discuss the project with the town architect Jules Koelmans. They looked at brick options, but the biggest discussion concerned the staircases. Jules was not happy with the 4 5-feet wide spiral staircases at each corner. He was concerned that 4 access points would be difficult to manage, notably with the lack of pissoir in the town. So this is a rough timescale. In 1918, Baker, Blomfield and Lutyens were signed up by the Imperial War Graves Commission. The first ideas coming out for the YPRES in 1919. Then ideas were produced in 1921 by Blomfield, but he had to wait a couple of years before his design was approved, and then the official opening was in 1927. So this was the final idea, which the local architect liked and Blomfield went ahead with. So we've got the staircases on either side, leading up to the causeway, and this is a view of the upper level. So we don't get the entrance here on this plan, but the corner staircases are retained, but don't go up as far as they used to. So this is the ground floor level with the staircase we have today and the staircases going up to the upper level. This pleased Blomfield because there were more spaces now here and here for names to the missing. So this is a section through the causeway. You can see the old section of the damaged causeway and the new causeway level shown here. Old staircase from the ground level to the roof. This is in the old plans, and this is the upper level leading from the gallery to the roof. The new stairs now only give access to the roof from the gallery level, so you can come up the stairs here and then continue up to the roof, but of course it's closed to the public. So this is the central staircase nowadays, with the walkway up towards the ramparts. 21st of March 1922, during the meeting with Koemens, Blomfield asked for trial holes. In May 1922, they found clay and running sand and an old palisade fortifications in blackened wood, Ypres once being garrisoned by English archers, neither ideal for normal foundations. A meeting on 13th of July 1922 with Sir Maurice Fitzmaurice was a bit awkward. Fitzmaurice suggested a concrete rough foundation 30 feet thick, more than 9 meters, over the whole site. Sir Maurice was one of the old school, an excellent engineer who had worked with Sir Benjamin Baker on the 4th railway bridge in Scotland. Blomfield, however, had a young engineer, Oscar Faber, who was a pioneer in the use of reinforced concrete. He used a 2-foot thick reinforced concrete raft, supported by 16-inch square, 36 feet long piles. Oscar was also the engineer for the Vimy Memorial. With Sir Maurice put in his place by a young engineer, Blomfield retracted from wanting to stick bricks to the underside of the vault. Fitzmaurice was happy with that. So this is the Menin Gate as we know today, the view from the town, and this is the view back towards the town. So we can see the full width vault, concrete vault, no bricks. So we ended up with the current Menin Gate. Not everybody was happy with it. Quote, "It seems to me that the architect responsible for the work has completely failed to express the brave chapter of English history enacted before our sight during the 5 struggling years of the war." And continued, "Look at the design. It is made up from the stock of architectural commonplaces and meaningless trappings, lacking that imaginative, sympathetic handling visible in all great works, bereft of the enthusiasm and patience which should endow it with the impress of life, lacking power and significance, missing utterly that quality which would prove it has been played over in every part by the sensibility of human intelligence and emotion. This was a quote by Mary Atherton in January 1924 after seeing the plans. She didn't live to see the final project. So Blomfield chose the best site for the memorial, but he wanted to make sure that his monument made a great impact. He wanted to improve the vista from the Grand Place by moving back the buildings along the intervening street. So this is the plan before, the old plan, and the current plan with the Menin Gate here, the market space here, the cathedral here, Cloth Hall there, and this is the view, the vista, which Blomfield wanted to adjust. He wanted to move it out like this with a wider street, giving a much better view of the Menin Gate. So this is the current view in Ypres, and he wanted it widened with a better view of Menin Gate. So here you can see this is the Grand Place and Menin Gate in the background, which is a bit difficult to see. So with the wider street, it may have looked a little bit like this. This is the Palais de Justice in the center, which used to be a hospital. So this is the Palais de Justice built after the war, and this is the hospital which was there before the war. Again, we can see this is during the war, the remains of the Cloth Hall, the remains of Ypres, but the hospital still standing. So firstly, Blomfield chose the best site for the memorial. Also lucky that the site was an open ruin. The Canadians had sidelined the southern part of the Menin Gate, unknown how they were encouraged to go away. An empire or an international competition may have produced some great ideas, but it's not certain that another idea could have dealt with 50,000 names. Most of the Western Front Commonwealth War Graves Commission cemeteries are in a sort of classical style, which match with the Menin Gate. Here we can see some of the archways in the cemeteries and the names of the architects beneath. And here's some more. It's evident the classical architectural quality of these buildings. So there are various acknowledgements on this page, and it's the end. Part 2 will come up soon. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Please comment